Do you believe they put a man on the moon? Well, today we are going to delve into the murky history of the world's largest space agency. We'll launch into the topics of rocketry and warfare and look at some of the strange people who helped with their evolution. But first, please like and subscribe so you can see our new videos. Gunpowder was discovered in China in the 9th century by alchemists searching for the elixir of life. The earliest rockets also emerged in 9th century China after gunpowder was placed in hollow tubes and attached to arrows. They were developed primarily for military purposes, but were later used for ceremonial displays. Wan Hu, a Chinese man, attempted to become the first person to fly using rockets. He tied 47 bamboo tubes filled with gunpowder to his chair and lit them. Unfortunately, he died during the attempt. Their first documented use as a weapon came during the Battle of Kai Feng Fu in 1232, where the Chinese used them to repel Mongol invaders. The Mongols later adopted the technology and are considered responsible for spreading rocket use across Eurasia and eventually into Europe. The various countries of Europe experimented with their composition and design until rockets were used in the Battle of Chioggia in 1380 during the war between the Republic of Venice and the Republic of Genoa. This was the first recorded use of rockets in European warfare. These devices caused fear, yet they were far too inaccurate to be of any real danger. The history of early rocket technology took a significant leap in the mid-16th century with the work of Konrad Haas. His contributions, along with the origins of the term rocket, provide fascinating insights into the evolution of this technology. Konrad Haas wrote, in the mid-16th century, a manuscript detailing advanced concepts in rocket technology. Discovered in 1961 in the CBU Public Records, his work combined fireworks and weapons technology. Haas introduced groundbreaking ideas, including the theory of multi-stage rockets, which later became fundamental to space exploration. He experimented with liquid fuel mixtures for propulsion and used delta-shaped fins and bell-shaped nozzles on his designs, which became critical for rocket stability and efficiency. The word rocket derives from the Italian term rocchetta, named for its resemblance to the thread holder of a spinning wheel. This term was adopted into German in the mid-16th century by Leonhard Franzberger, a German military theorist, and by Konrad Haas himself. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the first known reference to the word rocket in English appears around the mid-1560s, with the earliest evidence being from 1566. The Europeans continued with their interest in rocketry all the way up until the First World War. Rockets were used in the Great War to attack observation balloons and airships. The first use of rockets fired from aircraft was also during that war, with the invention of the Le Prieur rocket. Invented by French Lieutenant Yves Le Prieur, this incendiary rocket was first used in the Battle of Verdun in 1916. It was mounted on the inner plane struts of Nieuport fighters. The rockets were inaccurate, with a range of about 115 meters or 126 yards. In the Second World War, the first air-to-air rockets were used by Germany. The R-4M was a massive breakthrough, but it came too late in the war to make much difference. The Russians had truck-mounted rockets that bombarded the enemy. The Katyusha, also known as Stalin's organ, was renowned for the distinctive howling sound of the rockets launching. This, combined with the sight of a large barrage, created a significant psychological effect on enemy troops, often causing panic and fear. And while individual rockets might not be highly accurate, the combined explosive power of a salvo could inflict heavy damage on personnel, infrastructure, and equipment. But the most famous and most advanced rockets of that era were the V-2 rockets, which were created and utilized by Germany. Known as the Vengeance weapon, it was the largest and most powerful rocket engine of its time, with a maximum range of 220 miles, a ceiling of 50 to 60 miles, and a speed of 3,400 miles per hour. The V-2 rockets were launched against London, Antwerp, Liège, Brussels, Paris, and Luxembourg. They caused widespread terror and resulted in many casualties due to their high speed, lack of audible warning, and destructive payloads. These advanced rockets caused problems for the Allies, and once the war was over, the scientists who worked on the V-2 project were quickly snapped up by the USA, Britain, and Russia. Operation Paperclip was a covert intelligence program carried out by the United States between 1945 and 1959, aimed at recruiting over 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians from Nazi Germany for employment in the U.S. following the end of World War II in Europe. Many of the individuals brought to the U.S. under this program were former members of the Nazi Party, and some had direct links to its leadership. Despite this, their expertise in areas such as rocketry, aeronautics, and chemical weaponry was seen as critical for American advancements in military and space technology during the early stages of the Cold War. Wernher von Braun was instrumental in the foundation and success of NASA's space program. His expertise in rocketry, developed during his time in Nazi Germany, positioned him as a leading figure in the United States' push for space exploration. He was the head engineer on the V-2 project, and initially, von Braun worked for the U.S. Army on ballistic missile development, contributing to rockets such as the Redstone, which was later modified to carry the first American astronaut, Alan Shepard, into space. In 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, was established to lead the U.S. space efforts during the Cold War and the space race with the Soviet Union. Von Braun and his team were transferred to NASA in 1960, where he became the first director of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. That same team were responsible for the creation of the Saturn V rocket, the launch vehicle that made the Apollo moon landings possible. This rocket remains one of the most powerful ever built. But there were others involved in the creation of rockets on the USA. A young man named Jack Parsons worked at JPL, or Jet Propulsion Labs in Pasadena, California, and in some ways his background was even more strange than that of von Braun. Born in 1914, Parsons was one of the founding members of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, in Pasadena, California, which would later become a major part of NASA. In the 1930s, he was instrumental in developing solid rocket fuels, which proved to be essential for the advancement of space travel. Parsons' work focused on developing better and more powerful rocket engines. In particular, his innovations in solid propellants laid the groundwork for modern rocketry. He was involved in several successful rocket tests and the development of the first high-performance solid rocket engines. And after these massive breakthroughs, JPL became a partner with NASA, and their technology helped launch the first U.S. satellite, Explorer 1, in 1958. This is all quite impressive, but Parsons' other interests included the occult, and he was an adherent of Aleister Crowley's teachings. He even founded a group called the Antelope Valley Lodge, which taught and practiced Crowley's Thelema philosophy. Parsons was not just a passive follower, he was deeply engaged in performing occult rituals, including complex invocations, meditations, and magical ceremonies. Although some would say that science and the occult can't mix, Parsons did not believe this to be true. One example of how Parsons sought to combine his scientific and occult pursuits was his deep interest in exploring the unknown through both science and magic. He saw space exploration as a means to transcend the material world and tap into higher realms of existence. Parsons' intense belief in the occult and his work in rocketry sometimes appeared to blend together, leading to a life that was both scientific and profoundly mystical. Unfortunately, Parsons' career was cut short when he died in a mysterious explosion in 1952 at the age of 37 while working in his laboratory. His death has been surrounded by speculation, but his contributions to rocket science, especially at JPL, played a foundational role in the early days of space exploration and ultimately the formation of NASA. So there we have it, from ancient China to 1960s USA. NASA had become the world's leading space agency and had put men on the moon in 1969 with the Apollo 11 mission. But they would never have been able to do so without the help of Genghis Khan, a Nazi scientist and a Satanist rocketeer. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you soon for another Words and Sound video.